Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And an issue that has really blown up in this U.S. Senate race, and something that a lot of people are hearing about, is something that we're going to be exploring, and this involves labor unions. And very pleased to bring on someone who's going to shed some light on it. Mark Zeldon is the executive director of Louisiana Conservative Action Network. And Mark, welcome to Ringside.
Thanks so much for having me, Jim.
Tell us about the Employee Free Choice Act. What is that?
Well, it's the latest push by organized labor to reverse the long-time trend in union employees as private sector workforce. Labor law is fairly established on how you certify and collectively bargain and become an actual union. And it's been established for some time, and the current labor leadership in Washington feels like the rules need to be changed, hence the title Employee Free Choice Act.
All right, so basically what we, and correct me if I'm wrong, what we would be doing is going to a system whereby labor bosses or people involved in labor unions could oversee someone's private choice about whether they wanted to join a union or not, so that the secret ballot would be no longer in place. Is that correct?
Correct. The laws that's evolved, initially the law allowed for a private ballot or other suitable measures. And what happened in the first 10 or so years of this, there were a lot of abuses. And the Congress and subsequent judicial rulings and executive branch rulings limited it to a private ballot, because it was shown that that was the most effective way to strike a balance between business and organized labor for the purpose.
Like when I go vote in elections, I do so privately, and I think that's important. Shouldn't those that decide about labor unions have the same right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, simple things like Congress, when they organize and vote for committee chairs and leadership offices, it's a private ballot. And I think history shows that when something is not private, people, and it's out in the public, I think people tend to want to go along for the purposes of going along.
People would feel intimidated
Absolutely.
that they have to join the union and would do so, and maybe they really deep inside wouldn't want to, and
Correct.
they would feel intimidated. So.
Sure.
What kind of consequences would this have for unions, you think, if this passes?
Well, it would be, and I don't think this is our organization's opinion. I think anybody would say this is the most radical change of labor law since the National Labor Relations Act in the 1930s.
So who's pushing this right now?
Well, you know, all the national organized labor interest, you know, I mean, they're obviously the AFL-CIO is the largest, but, you know, they're affiliated steel workers and rubber workers and government and service employee unions and things of that sort are aggressive. This is their number one priority.
All right, so they've got some folks, I guess, they've been working with in the Senate, and it's sort of become a big issue in this whole Kennedy-Landry race, right? Because organizations are now spending money really blasting Landry for her support of this measure, correct?
Yes, you know, business has tax issues, they have trade issues, they have regulations and things of that sort, but most of the business groups that we discuss with, this is by far the issue that causes them the most concern. They feel like it will upset the balance that's been established, like I said, for over 60 years, whereby there were processes in place to organize a labor, to organize a union, and to change it so drastically and so quickly without a real full discussion of the issues is not the way to go about setting public policy.
Now, some of our viewers out there might be members of labor unions, so they might say, "Hey, Mark, sounds like you're anti-union, are you?"
No, my father-in-law actually is in a local union here. He's a pipe fitter. He's a good man. You know, the process, though, that he started to join that union was by private ballot, and it's just it's a real fundamental aspect of America to be able to do this privately. A lot of other countries around the world, Canada, for example, has moved to this. Mexico, a lot of organized labor groups here in the United States have, in recent years, strongly urged Mexico to move in the direction of a private ballot, because when you have the opportunity to vote privately, whether it's for, you know, president of your high school or an election, being able to do so privately, it illustrates your true intentions.
But here's why I think labor bosses are so concerned about this, because if people do have privacy in their decisions, many people right now, maybe that belong to unions, might not elect to continue to belong. Maybe their membership will go down. In fact, we have a graph here we'd like to show to our viewers, which shows how membership in labor unions has actually declined over the years. And explain, if you could, a little bit about what these numbers show.
Well, it's not a matter of dispute. Most people that observe the percentage of members in a union in the private sector non-farm workforce have seen a steady decline since the early 70s. It really went down from the mid 70s until the 80s. It's plateaued somewhat, but it continues to drop as a percentage of the private sector workforce.
So a steady drop from the 70s to today, and maybe this is their gambit to try to boost membership up again.
Correct. They tried back in the early 90s during the Clinton administration to repeal an aspect of the current law to allow for striker replacement. That was sort of that was the trend in the 1990s. It was unsuccessful. I think they see this as the next way, perhaps, and quite frankly, it would be much more radical than the striker replacement bill.
Your organization, Louisiana Conservative Action Network, what's your purpose?
Well, our basic mission is that we support market-oriented solutions to the myriad of problems that we face, whether it's tax policy, energy policy, issues about the judiciary and the proper role of the judiciary. We support market solutions in general because we feel it's the way to best allocate resources. It creates the most amount of freedom and economic prosperity.
Do you believe that economic prosperity and labor unions can coexist?
Absolutely. There's no doubt that there is a certain role in the U.S. workforce for organized labor. It's just altering the rules in the middle of the game when you're losing. I think strikes fundamentally at what Americans would perceive to be as an unfair changing of that process.
Right, and I agree with you. I think unions have made important contributions, but people should have the freedom to decide whether they want to join a union or not, and not feel intimidated. And if people don't want to, they should have that right not to. Now let's talk about this bill. I mean, where does it stand? I mean, if Barack Obama is elected president, is this going to become the law of the land?
There's a lot of speculation of that sort. I think as important as the presidential election is, and obviously if he wins, he strongly supports the bill, a lot of it depends on these Senate races. And there's probably 8 to 10 of them out in all across the country that, depending on who wins those races, and should Democrats gain, a sizable enough block of voters in the U.S. Senate that there might be a possibility to invoke cloture, break a filibuster, and send that legislation to the president, should it be Mr. Obama, for a signature.
Wow. So this is something that could be done in early 2009.
Absolutely. I think that the previous record, 3 months into the new Democratically controlled Congress, the U.S. House of Representatives brought it up for passage, and the Senate took it up within that same time frame. And
as far as we know the impact on labor unions would be membership would go up, probably.
Certainly.
What would be the impact on the overall economy?
Well, I think, if history is any guide, the impetus to allow people to collectively bargain, and there was a good reason for that. But like a lot of things, things were pushed out of whack. And if you look at the amount of strike activity that was going on in World War II and the period right after World War II, before this part of labor law ultimately got settled, you'll see tremendous disruptions of the economy. And again, one of the attractions, I think, that a lot of industry is looking at the state. The Governor General's had a number of recent successes on that. I think a big part of that is labor costs. And if you've got organizations organizing at what we would call non-traditional places, places that have smaller, not the large factories, not the Avondale shipyards of the world, but these smaller operations like a bakery that might have 50
How
or 20
would this
employees.
affect them?
Well, the democratically controlled House rejected overtures to limit the scope for small businesses under the Small Business Administration Act. There's a definition of what constitutes a small business. They stoutly resisted that when the House of Representatives took up the bill back in March of 2007. But I think it's becoming an issue where, whether it's a business that has 5 or 10 employees or a business that has hundreds, if not 1,000, are all feeling like, if folks want to join and collectively bargain to be in a union, that's fine, but the process is fair. The way that the process evolved to where it got now is a fair balance, and radically altering it would have substantial ramifications for economic activity.
Final 30 seconds here. Another factor here is when labor bosses get a lot of these dues from members, they use that for political contributions, correct?
Correct, not for collectively bargaining.
Right, and 9 out of 10, it's for Democratic candidates, isn't it?
Correct.
which, again, if people join a union, that's fine, but I'm sure a lot of these members that are joining don't want their dues to be going to support a particular candidate, and that's another issue here. Is there a website people can get more information?
Yes, thanks so much. We are on the web. Our webpage is www.louisianacan.la. That's louisianacan.la.
All right, Mark Zeldon, thanks for being with us. Interesting issue. We'll be following it closely. Could have major ramifications on our economy here in Louisiana. All right, when we come back, it's time for my final round, my commentary of the week. That's next on Ringside.